Part 37. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 365. Chapter 359 Begging. Zhou Jiang's eyes darkened. He did it so covertly, how on earth did these people find out? He cannot be taken away. Zhou Jiang gave his wife a look. Mrs. Zhou suddenly held her stomach with both hands and moaned in pain. "Ah, it hurts, my stomach hurts so much." Zhou Jiang was satisfied with his wife's tacit understanding. But there was an anxious look on his face. "My wife is pregnant and can't bear the excitement. Mr. Bai, if you have anything to do, can we wait until my wife is well before we can discuss it?" Seeing that Mrs. Zhou's face turned pale in pain, Bai Shangshu frowned and looked hesitant. Ling Chu smiled lightly. "Mrs. Zhou, your acting is really similar. But, have you forgotten where this place is?" Mrs. Zhou was stunned for a moment, and then she realized that this was a medicine shop, and the doctor was watching from the side. But now that the words had been spoken, she was in a difficult position and could only continue. Seeing that she was in severe pain, the women onlookers hurriedly shouted, "Oh, the pain is so serious, don't forget the fetal movement. Doctor, doctor, please come over and check the pulse quickly. It will be terrible if the pain continues like this." Some people also said to Bai Shangshu, "Sir, fetal irritation is not a trivial matter. If you have anything to do, let's discuss it slowly." Faced with the enthusiastic persuasion of the women, the doctor did not move. He was unsure of Ning Chui's attitude, and was afraid that if he did something wrong, it would bring trouble to himself. Ling Chu knew the doctor's worry and said with a smile, "Since Mrs. Zhou is in severe pain, please ask the doctor to check her pulse, in case she really has fetal gas." After glancing at Ning Chui and seeing that he had no objection, the doctor walked towards Mrs. Zhou. Mrs. Zhou was secretly annoyed that Ling Chu was too busy and waved her hand to the doctor. "There's no need to check the pulse. I'll just go back and rest." Ling Chu did not agree. "That won't work. If you go back and say that we caused a miscarriage and failed to keep the child, who are we to talk to for explanation? No, I'm not an unreasonable person. I'll just go back and have a rest. Husband, please help me go back. I'm a little tired and want to go back and lie down." The couple were anxious to leave. Ling Chu sneered, "Wait a minute, since the pain is severe and there is a doctor ready, but Mrs. Zhou is so resistant to taking the pulse, is there something fishy in your stomach?" The onlookers' eyes changed when they looked at Mrs. Zhou. She was pregnant and in severe pain but refused to let the doctor check her pulse. It was indeed suspicious. "Girl, don't talk nonsense, my little girl is half a month late, there is nothing strange about it. But you, an unmarried girl from Yuning, can be forgiven for not understanding this." Mrs. Zhou wanted to insist on leaving, so Ning Chui signaled to the two Jinyi guards next to her to step forward and catch her. Mrs. Zhou wanted to struggle, but she couldn't move. The onlookers had already noticed that something was wrong with Mrs. Zhou, so they did not ask for help and just watched quietly. The doctor came forward to check the pulse. Hand just put it on Mrs. Zhou's wrist. It didn't take long for her to let go. Seeing Ning Chui looking over, the doctor said, "Sir, Mrs. Zhou is not pregnant." Mrs. Zhou glared at the doctor. "It's impossible. My baby is indeed half a month late. It must be because I'm still young and you didn't diagnose it. Mrs. Zhou, I can guarantee that you are indeed not pregnant. You have been ill for so long, and although you have recovered now, it is not surprising that your baby is not certain. But if you really don't want to believe it, you can also find another doctor to diagnose your pulse." "No need, I believe I must be pregnant." Bai Shangshu's face was gloomy. He had already seen that Mrs. Zhou was faking it. But in order to prevent others from saying that he was using his power to oppress others, he asked the young man he brought to invite 3 doctors from other medical clinics to come over and check Mrs. Joe's pulse. Seeing the 3 doctors invited, Mrs. Joe panicked and did not want them to check her pulse. Ning Chui glanced over, and immediately a guard in Jinyi stepped forward and took Mrs. Joe into custody. Soon, all 3 doctors took his pulse. The unanimous conclusion was drawn: Mrs. Joe is not pregnant. Seeing that she was exposed, Mrs. Joe was ashamed and angry. She held her neck high and said, "I'm not pregnant and I'm not breaking the law. Even if you are a royal guard, you can't arrest me." Ling Chu nodded, "You're right, it's not illegal if you're not pregnant. But Zhou Zhang is not innocent." Ling Chu signaled to the Jin Yiwei who was escorting Zhou Zhang, "Let's go to Zhou's house." Zhou Zhang immediately panicked, "What are you trying to do? I didn't break the law." "Since I didn't break the law, why are you panicking?" Seeing Ling Chu's half-smiling eyes, Zhou Jiang's face turned pale and red, then turned red and white again. Zhou Jiang still wanted to make a distinction. Ling Chu didn't want to give him another chance. Just let people him away. Mrs. Joe was angry and annoyed, but there was nothing she could do. Soon the group arrived at Zhou's house, and the crowd watching the excitement also followed from the medical clinic. Bai Shangshu recognized Zhou's house at a glance as the house where he borrowed the medicine jar in his dream, but he still walked quickly to the stone lion on the left, and sure enough he saw a damaged area in its hair. "Zhou Zhang, it was you who deliberately lent me the medicine jar and transferred all your wife's illnesses to my mother. I have no enmity or grudge against you, so why do you want to harm my mother? Master Bai, how can you blame me for your mother's illness? Who has ever heard that you can borrow a medicine pot to get rid of your illness? This is simply ridiculous. And you borrowed the medicine pot in a dream, so how can you take your dream seriously?" The people watching around pointed at the excitement, and it was true that no one had ever heard of such a bizarre thing as taking advantage of illness. Zhou Zhang was proud. "What evidence do you have to prove that I killed your wife?" Bai Shangshu's eyes were like daggers. "If it wasn't you, how would you know that I borrowed the medicine pot in a dream?" Zhou Zhang choked, and then he realized that Bai Shangshu had never said this. Ling Chu glanced at him and said quietly, "It's not easy to get evidence. Bai Shangshu, go find the medicine pot." Zhou Jiang's heart tightened, but he quickly calmed down. He had already hidden the medicine pot. Bai Shangshu's boy was clever and ran directly to the kitchen without giving any orders. Just came back empty-handed very quickly. "Sir, I didn't find the medical pot in the kitchen." Ning Chui waved his hand, and the Jin Yiwei he brought immediately went into search. But after searching around, I couldn't find any trace of the medical pot. In the end, Ling Chu opened the system, but on the surface he did some calculations in front of everyone. Then he walked to a big tree behind the hut and said, "Dig this place." In a short while, the medicine pot was dug. It is exactly the same as the medicine pot that Bai Shangshu borrowed in his dream. Ling Chu raised his hand to make the secret, and a line of words appeared on the side of the medicine pot. Written above is the name and birth date of the dowager. Evidence was found, and Zhou Zhang and his wife looked ashen. Bai Shangshu was very happy. "Miss Ling, can you cast the spell now?" Ling Chu nodded. "Bring the madam in." When the identities of Zhou Zhang and his wife were confirmed in the drugstore, Ling Chu sent someone to tell Bai Shangshu to bring Mrs. Tai here. "The wife is on the carriage outside at this time." Bai Hongsheng brought her in with his servants. Ling Chu was about to cast a spell, but Mrs. Zhou knelt down towards her. "Girl, please show your respect. I don't want to die. I haven't given birth to a child yet." Thanks to CM EA for the reward of 100 book coins. Thanks for the monthly ticket support of 201906050146500279, Dusty Memories, and Time Like Dust. DD. Thanks to Shang Xuanyu. 20210301106472433066. Boon, white clouds in the sky a. Purple leaves, colorful life, wind kishan, 1402121840214428, crystal at diamond, 641,417, dusty memory. Fei Wenli, Kishang Aoxu. Prose. B.A., hope that dreams come true, Ulrika. D.B., happy reading. V. Yunyun all living beings, Xianbin, free as the wind 459, 854 729, Lalang Zixi, Daoyo. E.B., why do you grow old, CHLWCH. Loy and by book friends such as Scarred with Scar, L. 2023-082-8227. AC, the heartbeat on the left, Chen, Scarred with Scar in the sky and so on. Thanks to the book friends Xiaoxiang and Hengxiu for their support. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 366. Chapter 360 Price. Girl, I haven't been able to conceive a child in the 3 years since I got married, and I can't conceive even more after I got sick. If you turn the disease back on me, I will die. Mrs. Joe cried miserably to Ling Chu. Although poor people must be hateful. But the sick person was the wife of Shangshu Mansion, and Ling Chu had no control over the matter. Mrs. Joe kowtowed to Shangshu Bai again, Master Bai, we did something wrong. We shouldn't have harmed the wife, but we had no choice but to do it. There are 3 types of unfilial piety, the greatest of which is not having offspring. My husband is a single son of the 3rd generation, and I cannot be a sinner of the Zhou family. Please, sir, spare me this time. Mrs. Zhou became more and more sad the more she cried. Zhou Zhang also knelt down towards Bai Shangshu with red eyes. Bai Shangshu looked very unhappy. Although he sympathized with the couple, he had to save his mother. The people watching pointed. Bai Shangshu is in a dilemma. It is scary to say that if he insists on turning the disease back to Mrs. Zhou, the world might say that he was cruel because he didn't even care about a woman's life or death. Some people might even blame him for causing the Zhou family to die out. But if he let Zhou Zhang and his wife go, he would be harming his own mother. Bai Hongsheng resented the Zhou family and his wife, but he also knew that it was not easy for his eldest brother to become an official. If someone takes advantage of you and attacks you, even if you don't lose your official position, your reputation will be ruined. Mrs. Shangshu saw her husband's dilemma. Miss Ling, do you have any idea? Before she finished speaking, Ling Chu also knew that she was asking about a way to get the best of both worlds. Mrs. Zhou saw what Madame Shangshu meant and kowtowed to her gratefully. Turning to Ling Chu again, girl, I don't want to die, I don't want to be unconscious again. Do you have any idea? Can you please help me? Since Bai Shangshu didn't want to embarrass Zhou Zhang and his wife, Ling Chu had nothing to say. There is a way, but there is a price to pay, are you willing? Mrs. Zhou felt happy and nodded fiercely, as long as you don't die and have a chance to conceive a child, I can give you whatever you want. Zhou Zhang also echoed from the sidelines. My method is to bring back the illness of the dowager, and each of you and your wife will bear half of it. This way Mrs. Zhou will not be unconscious again. But Zhou Zhang has to bear half of the pain, are you willing? Zhou Jiang's expression changed. The pain was not bearable. Seeing his hesitant expression, Mrs. Zhou's expression turned ugly and said, husband. Zhou Zhang raised his eyes and looked over. He didn't know what he thought of, but suddenly gritted his teeth and said, I do. Ling Chu glanced at him and asked Bai Shangshu, Master Bai, have you made your decision? Miss Ling, I wonder if this will affect my mother's health. Don't worry, as long as the disease is taken away, Mrs. Tai will be able to recover. Bai Hongsheng breathed a sigh of relief. Zhou Zhang, I can agree to your request. But I want to know, who instigated you to attack my mother? Zhou Zhang shook his head, no one instigated me. This is my own idea. Bai Shangshu looked at him steadily, obviously not believing what he said. Zhou Zhang thought of the 3 generations in his family and his father before his death, and cried and begged him to leave descendants. This is what I was inspired by when I was dining in a restaurant when I heard Mr. Li, the left minister of the Ministry of Industry, chatting with a friend and mentioned an anecdote. Mr. Li's anecdote is about a man whose father is seriously ill and cannot be cured. When he was at his wit's end, the man rescued a Taoist priest who fainted from hunger in front of his house. After the Taoist priest woke up, in order to repay the man, he taught him to find a healthy person, and then cast a spell to help him lend the medicine pot to him. Transfer the disease away, and the man's father recovered without medicine. Zhou Zhang was worried about his wife's illness and overheard this strange news. So he wanted to give it a try and found a Taoist priest to cast a spell. I didn't expect that I would be successful on the first try. Zhou Zhang felt a little regretful. When he heard this strange news, he felt grateful to Mr. Li. He knew that Li Ji was not getting along with Bai Hongsheng. In order to repay him, he also heard that Mrs. Bai Futai had always been in good health, so he chose to transfer his wife's illness to her. Bai Shangshu's face was very cold. He didn't believe that this was a coincidence. Left Minister Li Ji did not deal with him. Although this was not his instigation, it was directed at him. If something happens to his mother, he can only worry. Li Ji is equivalent to becoming the top leader of the Ministry of Industry. It's a pity that although he knew that this was Li Ji's conspiracy, he couldn't do anything to him. With the matter clear, Bai Hongsheng signaled Ling Chu to cast a spell. Zhou Zhang, although I can let you bear half of the disease, you have harmed Mrs. Bai Fu and damaged your moral character. The lifespan of your husband and wife will also be affected in the future. If you don't want to die, pay half of your family's property to the madam. The remaining half, you must give porridge to the poor families in the city. In fact, Ling Chu could cast a spell to transfer Mrs. Zhou's disease to those cattle, sheep, pigs, and dogs. But she was unwilling to do so. Whether it is a pig or a dog, they are all alive. More importantly, she has to let everyone know that transferring her disease to others will not only cost her family money, but also affect her lifespan. If anyone still wants to use the method of borrowing a medicine pot to harm others, they must first consider whether they can afford the price. The faces of Zhou Zhang and his wife changed again and again. Although they were unwilling, they had to grit their teeth and agree for the sake of their heirs. Seeing that they agreed, Ling Chu started to cast the spell. Take the medical pot borrowed from Bai Shangshu, erase the name and birth date of the wife, and write those of Zhou Zhang and his wife. Then make a secret to let Bai Shangshu and Zhou Zhang fall asleep. In the dream, Bai Hongsheng returned the medicine pot to Zhou Zhang. Everyone could not see what happened in the dream. They only saw Bai Shangshu and Zhou Zhang falling asleep after Ling Chu cast the spell. Not long after, the two woke up again. Ling Chu walked to the Taifu's couch and cast a mysterious spell on her. Soon, the madam opened her eyes. Everyone in the Bai mansion suddenly became careless and pounced on him. Ling Chu stepped aside and said to Bai Shangshu, "My wife is still a little weak, but the problem is not serious. Just ask the doctor to prescribe some medicine to treat her." The imperial doctor who followed from Bai mansion was surprised to see Ling Chu resuscitating the wife. After checking Mrs. Tai's pulse, she found that all the symptoms on her body were indeed gone, and she couldn't be more impressed with Ling Chu. Although Zhou Zhang and his wife were not in coma, they were both sick. Seeing the scene with their own eyes, the onlookers exclaimed that it was amazing. It turned out that diseases can really be cured. The emperor learned that Mrs. Bai Fu's health had recovered, and he greatly praised Ning Chui and Ling Chu in the court. Even in front of the civil and military officials of the Manchu dynasty, he asked Dali Temple and the Ministry of Punishment to hand over all cases that could not be solved to Jin Yiwei. The Minister of Dali Temple and the Minister of Punishment knew that the Emperor wanted Ning Chui to complete 100 cases as soon as possible. The arms cannot twist the thighs, so the two of them can only respond respectfully. Ling Chu is happy to see the success. The more she helps Ning Chui, the faster she can pay off her debt to him. Mrs. Tai recovered. In order to thank Ling Chu, Bai Shangshu sent some craftsmen to help her build the yard. After the building was completed, Han Yao suddenly came to Ling Chu's house and asked her to move back to Dingyuan Prince's mansion. Request for votes. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 367. Chapter 361 Apply Eye Drops. Not long after Ling Chu returned home, Han Yao suddenly came to her house with her maid and mother-in-law. As soon as they met, he looked at King Dingyuan with great distress. "Father, why do you see that you have lost a lot of weight? Do you have to get up earlier than before to go to court every day? It's too hard. This is the tonic I asked the cook to stew. Father, please eat it while it's hot. You are the backbone of our palace, so you cannot be exhausted." "Concubine, why do you have so many frowns on your face and 2 white hairs on your head? Are you worried about the prince's middle-aged wife and don't have enough food or sleep? I asked the cook to stew this specially for you. It's for your beauty. Eat it while it's hot." "Brother, this is a soup that strengthens muscles and bones. You must not have eaten it at the military camp. Please try and see if the soup suits your taste." Han Song, who followed Han Yao, glanced at the faces of his father, the queen, his concubine, and his eldest brother. Muttered in his heart, why did he feel that what Han Yao said was wrong? Ling Chu sat aside and watched quietly. Han Yao showed her concern for everyone as soon as she arrived and was very considerate. But, thinking of dinner last night, King Dingyuan lamented to the princess that he had lost several kilograms when he went to suppress bandits and ate dry food every day. After living here for a while, his weight increased steadily. The princess laughed when she heard this and told him not to eat those good dishes and rice, but to eat steamed buns and porridge, to avoid getting fatter and ruining his image. When King Dingyuan heard this, he immediately disagreed. It is not that important to say that he is old and has no image. He also gave Han Lin the steamed buns and porridge that the princess gave him, and took away his plate of boiled fish. Wang Dingyuan was very eloquent, but Han Lin was inherently picky. Ling Chu has already gained several pounds, and if he continues to gain weight, no girl will be willing to marry him. King Dingyuan also muttered to the princess that the skincare cream that girl at Chuchu made for her was really good. The princess looked several years younger, and the skin on her face was smoother and whiter than that of a teenage girl. The princess was overjoyed when she heard this, but felt embarrassed when she saw the 2 children present, so she could only secretly pinch the soft flesh of Prince Yuan's waist. King Dingyuan pretended to be in pain and grimaced, and begged the princess for mercy. Thinking of this, Ling Chu's lips kept curling up. Han Yao's concern is destined to be in vain. Sure enough, King Dingyuan, the princess and Han Lin did not touch the tonic soup brought by Han Yao at all. They just glanced at it casually and then looked away. They have been eating these things for so many years and have long since become tired of them. On the other hand, that girl at Chuchu didn't know where she learned so many dishes. She asked the cook to change the dishes every day. Since they moved in, what they look forward to most every day is mealtime. If you already have a bad mouth, who would still want to take those supplements that you have long been tired of? Seeing that none of them were eating, Han Yao still smiled, but reluctantly. Have you just had a meal? Since you are not hungry yet, let's leave it for now. When you are hungry, just ask the cook to heat it up. Seeing the smile on Ling Chu's lips, Han Yao clutched the handkerchief tightly. I wish I could ruin Ling Chu's face that was as beautiful as a fairy. Afraid that King Dingyuan and the others would see her thoughts, Han Yao quickly concealed her thoughts, putting on a smiling face again. Mother, you have lived here for such a long time. If you don't move back, the palace will be in chaos. The palace's middle minister cannot live without you. Since Ling Chu's sister's house has been built, why don't you move back to the palace together? The princess has been in charge of the palace's central government for more than 10 years, and she is not worried about chaos if she is not around. But she was looking forward to Ling Chu's yard. Your Majesty, has the yard been built? Although the princess has never returned to the palace, King Dingyuan sometimes goes back to take a look. He nodded. It was built 2 days ago, and it will be almost done once the smell is spread. The princess looked at Ling Chu expectantly. Chu, do you think we should move back to the palace? Ling Chu hasn't spoken yet. Han Yao tried her best to persuade like a big sister. Sister Ling Chu, since the yard has been built, let's move to the palace together. The middle-aged servant of the palace cannot live without his mother and concubine. If we move back, our father and eldest brother will not have to get up early. So hard. King Dingyuan and Han Lin did not speak. It was not hard for them to get up half an hour early. They didn't want to force Ling Chu to move back to the palace. After getting along for a while, they already knew that Ling Chu was a very independent person and did not like to be restrained. If she is willing to move back to Dingyuan Prince's mansion, then she can move back. If you don't want to, you can just stay here. The couple will not deny her as their daughter just because she does not live in the palace. They owe this girl a lot, and they just hope that she will live a healthy and happy life in the future. Ling Chu looked at Han Yao. Although she seemed to be trying to persuade her, she was definitely not willing to move to the Dingyuan palace. Seeing that Ling Chu was silent, Han Song pursed his lips and said, Father, Mother, concubine, and grandma, you have lived here for such a long time, it's time to move back to the house. You have been living outside, and outsiders do not know about it, so it is inevitable that they will gossip about you. It seems that Han Yao came here to be a lobbyist today because of Mrs. Tai's intention. Father, Mother, and concubine, it's getting late today and there's no time to pack things. Let the maid pack them tomorrow and move back the day after tomorrow. When the princess heard this, she smiled happily and said, Okay, we will move back the day after tomorrow. Han Yao's face twisted for a while. She was just forced by the madam's request and gave a few words of pretense. Didn't this say she wouldn't go back to the palace before? Why did she change her mind? Although Han Yao quickly returned to normal, Ling Chu still noticed. Sister Ling Chu, if you can understand the difficulties of your father, queen, mother, and concubine, it's not in vain that they have moved here to live with you for so long. Listening to Han Yao's duplicity, she said softly, Stop it. First, I don't have a sister. Second, I'm older than you. From now on, I'd better stop calling you sister. I don't love you. Listen. Han Yao's face suddenly turned ugly. She bit her lip with her teeth and tears in her eyes, as if she had suffered endless grievances. King Dingyuan and the princess frowned when they saw her like this. But before they spoke, Han Song was already dissatisfied with Ling Chu. Yao Yao's leg is still injured. I came all the way to persuade you to move back with good intentions. Why do you have to speak so harshly? Ling Chu looked at Han Song indifferently. Since her leg is still injured and she is still jumping around, she is trying to use a trick but lacks a few tears. I am not worried that she will not achieve the effect and all her efforts will be in vain. I'm so kind in helping, why don't you thank me, but blame me instead? Being exposed, Han Yao was embarrassed for a while. Han Song was choked by her words and was speechless. Ling Chu glanced at him and sighed, It seems that if you didn't grow up beside your father, queen, mother, and concubine, in your eyes, even your biological sister is not as good as the fake one. You are so indifferent to right and wrong, and you will be worried about your head when you become an official in the future. As soon as Ling Chu finished speaking, Han Song knew something was wrong. Sure enough, the expressions of his father, queen, mother, and concubine immediately darkened. Thanks to Feng Guo 23, 201906050146502279. Dusty Memory Monthly Ticket Support. Thanks to Ixixi, Why We Grow Old, Sihide, Chen, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Purgatory Phoenix King, Colorful Life, A. Z, Xianbin, Pick a Pen for the Future, Happy Baby, This Moment, Laugh with You, Ulrika. DB, Ulrika. DB Yuan Juan. 20170318191430835835, Zinxen's Mother, Hope That Dreams Come True, Chen, 202212101005245118, Yunyun 593, Kishang Aoxu. Ab, 854-729, Crystal at Diamond.v, Why Do You Grow Old, UN 384, Xiaomei, Free as Wine 459, All Living Things, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Come On Elegance, Luo Luo, Lazy Zixi, Half an Apple, White Clouds in the Sky L, Shining Moon, This Moment, Laugh with You, This Moment, Laugh with You. Evening Primrose Basking in the Moon in Lucknow, Colorful Life, Scar Red, A Blind Dream. BC, Tao Yao. EB, Wind Chi Sound, Silent Blessing, Heartbeat on the Left, Tutu is Busy, 20090811, Ixixi, Feng Kishan and other book friends supported with monthly tickets. Thanks to the book friends Hongxiu and Xiaoxiang for their support. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 368. Chapter 362 Funny Cats and Dogs. It seems that if you are only allowed to practice martial arts and become a reckless man with a simple mind and strong limbs, my father has not considered it well. In order to prevent you from dragging down the lives of the whole family, after practicing martial arts in the future, stay up late and read more at night. Book, so as not to have to help others count the money if it is sold later. Han Song had a bitter look on his face. After a day of training in the military camp, he was as tired as a dog. The thought of having to stay up late to read in the future made his scalp numb. Why did he offend his father? Because of what he just said to Ling Chu? But he didn't say anything. Why was his father so angry with him? Han Song was complaining in his heart. He didn't want to practice martial arts, let alone study at night. It could be seen that his father's face was calm and he did not dare to speak. Looking at Han Lin for help. But his eldest brother glared at him angrily and looked away. King Dingyuan was even more dissatisfied when he saw that he did not dare to speak. Liner, as the eldest brother, you should keep an eye on your second brother from now on. Teach him when he needs to be taught, and beat him when he needs to be beaten. Don't let him grow into an embroidered pillow. Seeing King Dingyuan's serious face, Han Lin quickly stood up and responded respectfully. Han Song's face became even more bitter. Why did he talk so much to help Han Yao just now? It would be better to just be a blockhead quietly. Ling Chu glanced at him, showing no sympathy for him at all. Han Yao was so angry that her fingernails under her sleeves pinched her palms. How come the reaction of this Ling Chu was different from what she thought? King Dingyuan's eyes fell on her face and he frowned. Don't call us father, princess, and concubine anymore. Although we raised you, we are not your biological parents after all. Although your mother is gone, your biological father and grandparents are still there. You should go back to Ling Mansion. Reunite with them. Han Yao's face turned pale. Kneel down with a plop. Pulling the hem of Princess Dingyuan's skirt, she raised her head and cried, Father, Princess, princess, do you really don't want me? I don't want anything. Everything I have will be given to sister Ling Chu, no, to Ling Chu elder sister. I promise not to steal anything from her, and I will give her whatever she wants. I just ask my father, queen, mother, and concubine not to drive me away, but let me stay with you, okay? I don't know those people in Ling Mansion. I grew up next to you. How could they be nice to me? I'm afraid. If I go back, they will sell me to a wealthy businessman as a concubine. Manage. Yao Yao is afraid of his father and his mother's concubine. Don't drive me away, okay, please. I don't want anything, I just want to stay with you. King Dingyuan pursed his lips and said nothing. Princess Dingyuan saw Han Yao crying sadly, and she couldn't bear it. After all, it was the child she had raised like a treasure for more than 10 years. I want her to stay, but I am worried that Ling Chu will be unhappy. Han Yao begged Han Lin again, brother, you said you love me the most as your sister, and you don't even want me anymore. Han Lin frowned and saw that his father's face was not good, so he quickly brushed it off. I'm not your eldest brother. Your eldest brother is in the Ling Mansion. I said that when I was a child, and I didn't know you were not my sister at the time. Now Chu Chu is my sister, so naturally I love her the most. King Dingyuan was quite satisfied with Han Lin's performance. Han Yao's face turned pale and she looked at him in disbelief, tears falling down in clusters. His body was shaky, as if he had suffered a huge blow. Han Song couldn't bear it, his mind was so hot that he forgot what happened just now. Father, Queen, Mother, let Yao Yao stay. It's just a matter of having an extra pair of chopsticks, it won't hinder anything at Chu Chu. Facing the cold gaze of King Dingyuan, Han Song's voice became lower and lower, and finally after realizing it, I was talking too much again. Han Song shut up and did not dare to speak anymore. Only Han Yao's sad crying was left. At this time, a nun standing in the corner glanced at Han Yao with dissatisfaction, stepped forward quickly, and saluted King Dingyuan and the princess, my lord and princess, my wife is old, although there is no shortage of people around me to serve you, but loneliness is inevitable. The prince has to be busy with court affairs, the princess has to manage the central government, and the prince and the second son have to go to the military camp. The madam didn't even have anyone to talk to. With Miss Yao by her side, life wouldn't be so difficult. Madam Tai, since you all have your own affairs to be busy with, let Miss Yao stay in the palace to fulfill your filial piety. This is also the best of both worlds. Do you think this is true? The wife used filial piety to keep Han Yao. If the prince and princess still let her leave, it would be disrespectful to the wife and unfilial. If word spreads, I don't know how people will poke their spines. The prince and princess were worried that outsiders would not know, and thought that Ling Chu could not tolerate Han Yao and was narrow-minded and lacked tolerance. However, King Dingyuan thought in his heart that if Ling Chu was not willing, he would not want Han Yao to stay even if the wife was dissatisfied. The nanny may have sensed King Dingyuan's intention and said first, Miss Chu Chu, Miss Yao will stay. She will talk to the madam and help the prince and princess fulfill their filial piety. Do you have any objection? Don't worry, Miss Yao lives with Mrs. Tai and will not interfere with anything, nor will she compete with you for the favor of the prince or princess. Ling Chu glanced at the nanny and said softly, since the madam wants to keep Han Yao for fun and entertainment, no one will go against her wishes. But I think just relying on Han Yao alone may not be enough. Elderly people like to be lively. How about I give the wife a few kittens and puppies? That would make it more lively. The Wangfu family has a great cause, but it is just a few livestock, which can afford it. Han Yao almost fainted because she was being treated as a funny cat or dog and treated as a beast. How dare she humiliate this like this? Han Yao wanted to kill Ling Chu, but the prince and princess were watching. She did not dare to reveal even the slightest of her thoughts. She could only lower her head and wipe her tears to hide her hatred. The nanny looked at Ling Chu with sharp eyes and secretly sighed at what a sharp mouth she had. It seemed that she was not willing to take any loss. King Dingyuan looked at Grandma with a serious look. Mother Gong, you are an old man in the house. If you feel that you are old and confused in doing things, then go home as soon as possible to reunite with your children and grandchildren. Mother Gong's face turned pale. She knew that the prince was dissatisfied with her and beat her. The princess also said coldly, Mammy's eldest son must be working with shopkeeper Han. The work in the shop is not easy. Do you want your son to go back and rest? Mother Gong's expression changed. The princess said she wanted her son to go back and rest, but she was actually hinting that her son should get out. This is not asking her what she means, she is just beating her up like the prince. The princess is in charge of the royal family's finances, and she is also in charge of the business of the shop. Although the madam wanted Han Yao to stay, she could not object. But this does not mean that Aunt Gong can hold Han Yao up and step down on her own daughter. If Aunt Gong can't tell the difference between Han Yao and Ling Chu, she and the prince don't mind letting her pack up and leave together with her son. Mother Gong heard what the prince and concubine meant and did not dare to speak for Han Yao anymore. Even though she belongs to the wife, if the prince or princess finds fault with her and wants to drive her away, the wife will not leave her son for a servant. The weather has cooled down, it's been very cold recently. Dear friends, please pay more attention to your health. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 369. Chapter 363 Tips. Grandma Gong was beaten in turn by Prince Dingyuan and the princess. She didn't dare to say anything. Instead, she put on a smile and praised Ling Chu again and again. She was relieved when she saw that the expressions of the prince and princess softened. Then, on the pretext that it was getting late, he took Han Yao back to the palace. Han Song looked at Han Yao, then turned to look at his father, queen, concubine, and eldest brother. He looked hesitant, not knowing whether he should follow Han Yao back or stay. Han Lin sighed inwardly and was about to ask him if he wanted to stay for dinner. King Dingyuan was already glaring at Han Song. Why don't you leave? Stay here and wait for me to invite a sedan chair to take you back. Go back early and read more if you have nothing to do. Don't wait until you really grow up to be a fool. I will regret it again. Han Song was scolded so hard that he didn't dare to get angry, let alone refute. He responded respectfully and prepared to leave. When he turned around, he glanced at his mother-in-law and eldest brother with resentful eyes. Neither of them even spoke for him. Looking to the side, Ling Chu was happily eating cakes and sipping tea as if he was watching a play, and his mood was even more complicated. Han Song felt that since his father, queen, mother, and concubine recognized Ling Chu, not only did they no longer want Han Yao, they also no longer wanted him. Now in the hearts of his father, the queen, mother, and concubine, his eldest brother and Ling Chu are their biological children. The four of them are a family, he is an outsider. Seeing Han Song walking out gloomily, the princess sighed. This little son is no longer young, but he is still so innocent. The prince taught him a lesson and asked him to study more for his own good. It is not easy for the princess to refute. Can only give the eldest son a secret wink. Han Lin knew that his mother and concubine were worried, so she asked him to remind Han Song not to be stupid like today and anger his father. Father, I still have something to discuss with my second brother. I will go and see him off. King Dingyuan glanced at him and had no objection. He naturally understood the thoughts of the princess and the eldest son. It is better to let the eldest son give some advice to the second son, otherwise he will not know when he will understand the situation. Han Lin exited the flower hall and quickly caught up with Han Song. Second brother. Han Song heard his voice and stopped sadly. Brother. Unhappy. Han Song didn't say anything and acquiesced. You still haven't figured out why you off your father. Han Song pursed his lips and said after a while, where did I go wrong? Yao Yao's leg was broken, and her father, queen, mother, and concubine didn't want to see her at all now. Even the yard where she lived was demolished by her father, so she had to move to her grandmother's house. Live on the edge. Even before her legs and feet are fully intact, she has been busy stewing soup for you and delivering it all the way, and kindly advised you to move back. She has done a good job. Why do you have to drive her away? Our house is not one of those poor people who have to wait for every meal to last. It doesn't cost much to let Yao Yao stay. Besides, she has promised not to steal anything from Ling Chu. As long as Ling Chu likes it, Yao Yao promises to give it to her. Yao Yao is the head of the county. She is already so humble. Isn't it enough to give in repeatedly for Ling Chu? Even if she was not the biological child of her father, the queen, her mother, and her concubine, she was just a newborn baby back then, and she had no control over her. She couldn't stop what Dong wanted to do. Yao Yao is also innocent, how can you blame her? Han Lin looked at Han Song with hatred. It was no wonder that his father was angry with him. Even he wanted to pry open his head to see if it was filled with paste. Do you feel that Chu Chu has taken away everything from Han Yao? Han Song said nothing, with a default expression on his face. Han Lin was so angry that he almost slapped him on the back of the head. Let me ask you, who is the biological child of Han Yao or Chu Chu? Of course I know Ling Chu is the one. Since you know that Chu Chu is our sister, if she had not been replaced by the Dong family back then, she would have been the one who grew up with her father, queen, mother, and concubine. Everything Han Yao has now is originally from Chu Chu. It was Han Yao who stole everything from Chu Chu, not Chu Chu. If Chu Chu had not been replaced, she would have stayed in the royal palace and grown up surrounded by thousands of pets, instead of being sent all the way to a Taoist temple for foster care. It was she, not Han Yao, who was named county head. But what happened back then was done by Dong. Yao Yao was just a baby back then, so she was innocent. If Han Yao hadn't been just an ignorant baby, do you think she would still be alive? My father would have killed her and the Dong family long ago. It's not that I don't understand this, but what happened back then has passed, and the Dong family is also dead. The father and mother have also recognized Ling Chu back. If this is the case, why don't we just let them get along well together? Let Yao Yao leave the palace. Han Lin sighed in his heart when he heard this. This second brother used to think that his father and his eldest brother were there for everything, and he didn't have to worry about anything. In addition to reading on weekdays, I just recite poems and compose poems with some friends. When something happens, I am too lazy to use my brain and only look at things superficially. Furthermore, he has always had a relatively good relationship with Han Yao. Han Yao likes to ask him to come forward if anything happens. Han Song was used to defending Han Yao in everything, and it was difficult to change him all the time. He, as the eldest brother, could only give some advice. Second brother, do you know how miserable life is in Taoist temples? Have you ever thought about how much suffering and fatigue Chu Chu had to endure when she grew up from a baby in Xianqing Temple? If you were asked to live in a Taoist temple and have to rely on yourself for everything, without maids or servants to wait on you, would you be able to bear this kind of life? Without even thinking about it, Han Song knew that he couldn't bear it. He had grown up in the royal palace with fine clothes and fine food, and had long been accustomed to the days when food came and went, and when there was no one to serve him, he couldn't do anything. Can't stand it, can you? But you can only rely on yourself for everything. It will be 15 years after the first day of the new year. Moreover, because she has been in the Taoist temple since she was a child, no one has taken good care of her. She is in poor health and needs medicine every day. If it weren't for the care of Master Xianyi and senior brother Chu Chu, she would probably have been gone for a long time. We might not even know that she is our sister and Han Yao is a fake. Han Lin felt more and more uncomfortable as he talked about it. He and his father, the queen, and his concubine lived with Ling Chu for a while, and saw that she did everything she could do on her own, and rarely let the maids do it. Moreover, he had to drink medicine every day to take care of his health, and he also had to run the death shop to make money. Not only did his father, the queen, his mother, and the concubine feel distressed, but he also felt very sad. At this glance, you can tell that she has relied on herself for everything since she was a child, with no one around her to help her. Seeing that Han Song was thoughtful, Han Lin continued, "It took so many years for Chu Chu to be taken away before he was recognized. My father, queen, mother, and concubine feel guilty. You still help Han Yao, so they will naturally be angry with you. The reason why my father, queen, mother, and concubine want Han Yao to leave the palace and go back to Ling Mansion is because Han Yao is not as pure and kind as she seems on the surface." When Han Song heard this, he frowned. "Brother, do you have any misunderstandings about Yao Yao? She has been unable to bear to step on an ant since she was a child, and you actually said that she has no kindness. Thanks for the support of 13119213222849 monthly votes. Thanks to 202101261844353002, Fei Wenli, Pros. B.A., Purgatory Phoenix King, 1402121840214228, Xianbin, This Moment, Laugh With You, Sunshine, E, Silly, China Fuse, Penyong Fang, 201703181914308335, Chen, UN1, A, Purple Leaves, Hope That Dreams Come True, 854-729, Shangsuan Yu, Forget Me Not, Pros. B.A., CHLWCH, Road 92, Phi, All Living Beings, Goodbye 167, Yanglia Bank, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Free as the Wine 459, Lazy Zixi, Goat Song and the Story of Eyes, Re 200531, White Clouds in the Sky L, Logo Logo, Guan Guan. DC, Yulian Yuman. BC.V, Why Do We Grow Old, 2023-082-8227. AC, Prose. BA, Candy, Prose. BA, XXC, Sihide and other book friends' recommendation votes are supported. Thanks to Hungzio and Xiaoxiang for supporting book friends. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 370. Seeing Han Song's expression of ignorance, Han Lin felt regretful. He and his father were both wrong. They shouldn't think that Han Song is still young, so no matter what happens, they keep him behind, don't let him know, let alone let him bear the responsibility. No matter how young a child is, there is a time when he or she will grow up. If you keep him in the greenhouse, it will only harm him. Second brother, do you know that Chu Chu once gambled with Han Yao in the Qiu Pavilion? Han Song's face didn't look good when he mentioned this matter. Of course I know about this. Ling Chu used some tricks to win the bet, and won the bracelet that the imperial concubine gave to Yao Yao, and he refused to return it to his life or death. Besides these, do you know what's going on next? Han Song frowned. What else is going on? Isn't it that Yao Yao wants to exchange the silver for the bracelet, but Ling Chu doesn't agree? Han Lin knew at a glance that Han Yao had not told him the truth. You only know one but not the other. Do you have to admit defeat if you are willing to gamble? Although you are not good at gambling on stones, you should know that gambling on stones cannot be fake, right? No one can see whether there is jade in the original stone. Chu Chu how to win over Han Yao by using means. and they bet 3 times, all 3 times in front of the owner of Kuya Pavilion and other buyers. In full view of the public, if Chuchu had resorted to tricks, how could she have concealed it from others? Since Han Yao lost the bet, she should have given the bracelet to Chuchu. But that was given to Yao Yao by the imperial concubine. So what if the imperial concubine gave me a reward? What does it mean to be willing to admit defeat? Besides, we are from the palace and have never seen any good things. How can we be so short-sighted as to forcefully take back what we have lost? Don't you feel ashamed? Han Song was speechless. Did you know that Han Yao lost the bracelet and wanted to get it back from Chuchu? Chuchu disagreed. She even sent guards to intercept her halfway and wanted to take it back by force. She even secretly ordered the guards to kill Chuchu. Han Song frowned. Is there such a thing? Brother, did you deliberately make it up to deceive me because of Ling Chu? Han Lin was furious. Brother, am I that kind of person? If you don't believe it, you can go back to your house and ask the guards if this happened. You can also ask your father. You should believe what he says, right? Han Song saw that he didn't look like he was lying, but he still found it hard to believe it. Yao Yao is so kind, how could she let the guards the jade pendant and also want to kill someone? In addition to this incident, Han Yao also found local gangsters and wanted to knock Chuchu unconscious and sell her to a brothel. Fortunately, Chuchu had the ability to escape safely. Chuchu saw through Han Yao's tricks and used the trick to sell her to a brothel. Afterwards, Han Yao poisoned all the ruffians and killed the Kualayu who was waiting for her. Han Song was shocked that he didn't know any of these things. What made him feel even more chilly was that Han Yao, who had always acted like she didn't even dare to trample an ant to death in front of him, was so ruthless. Han Song was a little confused. The Han Yao he knew was the same person as the elder brother said. Why does he feel nothing like it? Han Lin sighed, regretting once again that he and his father should not have kept everything secret from him. Second brother, you are not young anymore. From now on, you should not only read the books of sages and ignore what is happening outside the window. Han Yao has done far more than that. After you go back, you can check it out yourself. No matter how much he said, it would not be more convincing than letting the second brother find out by himself. After thinking about it, Han Lin thought it would be better to say a few more words. Everything Han Yao has now belongs to Chuchu. She has enjoyed it for so many years, and she should have returned it all to Chuchu. Her status, title, and courtyard all belong to Chuchu. Chuchu didn't rob Han Yao of anything. Chuchu is our sister. She is very good, better than any of us. She was fostered in a Taoist temple since she was a child. She had no servants to serve her, so she had to do everything by herself. Not only is she independent, she also learned many skills from Master Xian Yi. She suffered so much, but she did not complain about others, nor did she resent her father, queen, mother, and concubines. She was kind-hearted. She stayed away from the Taoist temple and returned to Kyoto. She was disliked by everyone in the Ling family and was even disliked because of her fate, but she did not grow crooked. Instead, he became self-reliant and relied on his own skills to set up a fortune-telling stall, helping many people and making money to support himself and so many maids and women to protect him. He even bought a house and opened a shop. Chuchu is not only better than the ladies living in Kyoto, but all the royal guards under Master Ning admire her ability. Even the eldest brother feels inferior. If I had been treated like her since I was a child, I might not be as good as her. Good. Seeing that Han Song was dumbfounded, Han Lin reached out and patted him on the shoulder. You have to remember that Chuchu is our sister. Big brother hopes that you will think twice when encountering problems in the future and not be biased against Chuchu. Don't be used as a gunman. Otherwise, you should know what the consequences will be if your father is truly angry. Okay, it's getting late, you should go back early. Han Lin waved his hand towards him and turned around to go back. Han Song stood at the door for a long time before going back in despair. Ling Chu knew that Han Song didn't like her, but she didn't care. She is not gold or silver, so naturally it is impossible for everyone to like her. Han Song doesn't like her, just ignore her, don't worry. Han Yao, on the other hand, may continue to jump around. But if she dares to take action again, everything she owns will be taken away, leaving her with nothing. Chu, do you have anything to say? Seeing that she remained silent, the princess was a little worried. Ling Chu came to his senses and asked, "Father, can someone send a message back to the house and ask the guards to pay more attention to my yard?" King Dingyuan frowned, "Are you worried that Han Yao will attack your yard?" Ling Chu did not deny it, "Be careful and be prepared." The guards of the palace were heavily guarded. Although King Dingyuan did not think that Han Yao had a chance to take action, he still called a guard back to the palace to remind the captain of the guard. Unexpectedly, the next day, the royal guards chief came to Ling Chu's house to report. "My lord, I caught a boy at night and wanted to burn down the newly built courtyard." After interrogation, the boy said that his sister used to be on duty at Yaoguang Pavilion, but now that Yaoguang Pavilion has been demolished, her sister has no job. He was angry, but that's why I want to take it out on the new yard. King Dingyuan frowned and glared at the captain of the guard. "Retrial again." The captain of the guard lowered his head in shame. "My subordinate was negligent, and the boy bit his tongue and committed suicide." King Dingyuan looked very unhappy. Although the boy said it was for his sister, he didn't believe it. The maid in the mansion can arrange other errands for her as long as she doesn't make a big mistake and needs to be kicked out of the mansion. This matter, I'm afraid it's really Han Yao's handiwork. Ling Chu was not angry. Instead, she was looking forward to Han Yao taking action again. Ling Chu wanted to see what would happen if the position of county leader that Han Yao cared about most was gone. The votes are coming to the bowl soon. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 371. Although I plan to move to the palace, I don't have much to pack. Ling Chu likes the house on Kintai Street very much. She plans to move back if she is unhappy living in the palace in the future. So except for a little soft stuff and her magic tools and talismans, she didn't bring anything else with her. As for the clothes, apart from Ling Chu's Jinyi Wei Zioki Zhao Sui, the princess only asked her maids to pack the most expensive ones and take them with them. There is an embroiderer in the palace, and the princess's warehouse also has many good materials. Since she recognized Ling Chu, the princess wanted to make up for all the shortcomings in the past. Every 3 days, the embroiderer was called over to measure Ling Chu's clothes. So the princess didn't let her maids carry the clothes that were not old but not new. On this day, in order to show the importance he attached to Ling Chu, the prince specially took a day off. 2 more teams of guards were transferred from the palace. Together with the princess and Han Lin, he personally accompanied Ling Chu back to the palace. Ling Chu didn't know about this until he walked out of the gate and saw the guards. Even though she didn't want to be high profile, the guards were here, and Ling Chu couldn't displease her father. To her surprise, Han Song also came. "Mother and concubine, I'm here to take you back to my home." The princess was very happy to see Han Song coming to pick up Ling Chu. Although the prince didn't say anything, his face looked good, which showed that he was satisfied with it. Ling Chu and the princess got into the carriage. The 3 kings of Dingyuan and his son followed on horseback, followed by 2 groups of guards. Haunting through the city in such a grand manner aroused the curiosity of many passers-by. Soon the news spread, and passers-by knew that this was Prince Dingyuan and his wife taking their daughter back to the palace. The princess was very happy that Ling Chu was willing to return to the palace. Sitting in the carriage, he held her hand and introduced her to the situation in the palace. Ling Chu kept listening with a smile. "But I felt sorry in my heart. If the original owner was alive, I don't know how happy I would be. It's a pity that she has passed away long ago." Halfway through the carriage, The horses pulling the carriage suddenly became restless. The person driving the carriage today was the arranged by the prince, and he quickly discovered something unusual. The carriage was occupied by the princess and Ling Chu. The guard was worried that something might happen, so he had no choice but to stop the carriage. After King Dingyuan found out, he signaled the convoy to stop, and then immediately rode closer. What happened? The guard was a little nervous and said, "Your Majesty, there is something wrong with this horse." The princess had already noticed that the carriage had stopped. When she was confused, Ling Chu reached out and lifted the curtain. The guard got down from the shaft and was about to inspect the horse. I saw it moving uneasily and suddenly pooped a puddle of horse shit. It is very watery and has an unusually unpleasant taste. The guard's expression changed. Before going out, he clearly checked and found that there was nothing wrong with the horse. How could it suddenly have diarrhea? King Dingyuan has been on campaign for many years and is very familiar with horses. He knew something was wrong as soon as he smelled it. Immediately let the princess and Ling Chu get out of the car. As soon as the two of them got off, the horse suddenly fell to the ground, neighing uneasily. The guard felt uneasy, and regardless of the unpleasant smell, he stepped forward to check the horse manure. "Your Majesty, my subordinate failed in his duties and this horse was drugged." King Dingyuan's face was very cold. "When I returned to the palace, I went to Han Chi to get 30 military sticks." Yes, the guard knew that he had made a mistake and did not dare to say anything. In my heart, I was glad that I found out early and didn't let anything happen to the princess and Ling Chu. If in the army, a war horse is drugged, the penalty is not just 30 military sticks. That is a serious mistake that requires beheading. King Dingyuan accidentally glanced at Han Song aside and frowned. "Do you know who did it?" Ling Chu followed the sound and looked at Han Song and saw that he had a different look on his face. Seeing the cold face of King Dingyuan, Han Song turned pale and said, "Father, I don't know who did it. I just..." Seeing him hesitating, King Dingyuan's face turned even colder. "Say." Han Song's heart tightened. Before going out, Yao Yao asked the maid to bring me some cakes. I remember that the maid touched the horse at that time. However, I didn't see the maid feeding the horse anything. My son is not sure whether she did anything. The guard driving the carriage went to the hut at that time and did not know that this was happening. When he came back, he saw Han Song standing next to the carriage and didn't think much about it. King Dingyuan looked at Han Song with a disappointed look on his face. After returning home, go find Han Chi and get 40 military sticks by yourself. Han Song lowered his head and said, "Yes, father." Han Song did not dare to have any objections to this punishment. His father had always been strict. What's more, besides Ling Chu, there was also his mother and concubine sitting in the carriage. Han Song felt uncomfortable. Could it be that Han Yao really asked the maid to drug the horse? In order to harm Ling Chu, she didn't even care about the safety of her mother and concubine, not just using him. King Dingyuan was worried that the carriage had been tampered with in other ways, but he asked the guards to conduct a detailed inspection and found nothing wrong with it. The horse that was pulling the cart was not dead, nor was he mad. I don't know if the maid didn't have the chance to do anything else, or if she was just brave and heartless. She only dared to give some laxatives to make the horse loose and make Ling Chu feel a little more nauseous. However, Ling Chu was not disgusted. The more Han Yao dealt with her, the more dissatisfied the prince and princess would be with her. This is exactly what she wanted to see. That horse was innocent and was implicated by her. Ling Chu used a talisman on the horse to stop its diarrhea, and asked the veterinarian to treat it after returning home. No other problems were found. King Dingyuan asked the guard to change the horse-drawn cart, and the team set off again. After burning a stick of incense, we arrived at the Dingyuan palace. The manager of the palace, along with the maids, wives, and servants of the palace, were all waiting at the door to greet Ling Chu and his party. Arrived at the main courtyard, sitting in the flower hall were two ladies from the second and third bedrooms of the palace, and a girl from the second bedroom. But the second master and the third master are not here, they have gone to court. The wife was nowhere to be seen. According to the second wife, she was not feeling well. Han Yao is naturally not in the flower hall either. She is attending to Mrs. Tai's illness. In this regard, Ling Chu didn't have any trouble in his heart. The people in the second and third bedrooms didn't know what they were thinking about Ling Chu. There was only a faint curiosity on their faces. The two parties met in a lukewarm manner and exchanged a few words of greetings. The princess was ready to take Ling Chu to pay respects to the wife. Ling Chu returns home. The Thai madam is the elder, so she doesn't need to wait to see Ling Chu in the flower hall. But as a junior, Ling Chu had to go see her. The second lady saw that the two maids beside Ling Chu were each carrying a basket covered with black cloth, and the things in it were moving from time to time. She couldn't help but be curious, what is the eldest girl carrying? I looked at it, and it looked like a living thing. Ling Chu smiled and said, "This is the filial piety I prepared for Mrs. Tai." The second lady saw that the prince and princess were still there, and complimented her casually, "I didn't expect the eldest lady to be so filial. This is my first time back home, and I have prepared filial things for my wife." Ling Chu said modestly, "I don't deserve the compliments from the second madam. I just heard from my grandma that Han Yao is the only one who entertains the madam, so she is inevitably lonely. I will give her a cat and a dog, and let them go to the madam together with Han Yao. Madam relieves her boredom." The second lady's eyes flashed with surprise. It seemed that this big girl really couldn't get along with Han Yao and actually treated her like a funny cat or dog. End of chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 372. The princess led Ling Chu to the Taifu's yard, but she saw no one. Mother Gong came out to reply, saying that the wife was not feeling well and had to rest. Ling Chu was not sad at all, but smiled. The madam didn't want to see her, and she didn't want to see him either. This is just right, eliminating the need for false politeness. Ling Chu motioned to Xiaoji and Lu Xiangju to bring the basket over. "Mother Gong, I give these to the madam as a tribute. From now on, I will let them work with Han Yao to entertain the madam." Mother Gong looked down at the cat and dog in the basket with a complicated expression. She didn't expect that Ling Chu would actually send these two beasts to Mrs. Tai. Han Yao will definitely be furious when she sees it. Mama Gong didn't want to take it, but it was obvious that the princess was looking at her. Thinking of her son's errand, she had to reach out and take the basket. Ling Chu smiled and followed the princess away. The mother and daughter arrived at the newly built courtyard and looked inside and out. Since Ling Chu agreed to move to the palace, the princess asked her maid to send a message, and asked her dowry to open the warehouse and move many things to decorate Ling Chu's new yard. After looking at it carefully, the princess was quite satisfied. Ling Chu also felt that the entire yard was very nice, and even the plants and trees could be seen that a lot of thought had been put into it. The happiest people are Xiaoji and Lu Xiangju. They both feel that their girls have finally come to an end of their hardships and will definitely enjoy endless blessings in the future. The princess stayed with Ling Chu at the house on Kintai Street for such a long time, and she was still in charge of the middle school. Now that she came back, the ladies in charge came to find her. After settling down Ling Chu, the princess left. Ling Chu waited for the maid to settle down and rested for a while. When it was dinner time, the princess arranged a family dinner. The second master, the third master and all the young masters in the mansion are all back. Everyone was very considerate and came to the family dinner. However, the wife still did not come forward because she was not feeling well. Han Yao also didn't come. But this did not affect Ling Chu's mood at all. It would be a good idea if they didn't come, but Ling Chu was worried that it would affect her mood for the meal. After the banquet, except when necessary to talk, Ling Chu spent the whole time tasting the delicacies of the palace. In the palace, apart from the wife, the prince and the princess have the highest status. No matter what everyone thinks in their hearts, on the surface, their attitude towards Ling Chu is pretty good. We all had a fairly harmonious family dinner. But maybe the prince and princess were not very satisfied with the attitude of the dowager. The next day, the prince directly ordered someone to open the ancestral hall without notifying his wife. After worshipping the ancestors of the Han family, Han Yao's name was crossed out from the genealogy. Then he solemnly wrote Ling Chu's name on the genealogy. Of course, Ling Chu's name was changed to Han Chu. After hearing the news, Han Yao cried sadly in front of Mrs. Tai. The lady gave her a hairpin to comfort her. But after Han Yao returned to her yard, she smashed a set of teacups. Ling Chu didn't care at all. Although she returned to the palace, she did not forget that she was still a member of the Jinyue Zioki. She still went out early and came back late every day to be on duty at the Jinyue. On the 5th day after returning to the palace, it happened to be the time of rest. A grand banquet was held at Dingyuan Prince's mansion. King Dingyuan and his wife felt that it was not enough to recognize Ling Chu and to sacrifice their ancestors. In order to make up for Ling Chu, they decided to banquet guests and tell the world that they recognized their daughter. The other thing is that they want to take this opportunity to give Ling Chu a hairpin gift. When Ling Chu got up early in the morning, the princess sent 2 maids beside her to help her wash and change clothes. After finishing dressing up, he was escorted by the maids to the reception hall. Ling Chu's arrival immediately attracted everyone's attention. The princess was chatting with ladies from various houses and a group of ladies. Seeing Ling Chu dressed up, his eyes turned slightly red. The princess felt guilty and happy at the same time. Princess Jing patted her hand and comforted her, "Don't drop the golden beans on your big day. Back in the palace, I told you that the girl in Chuchu looked like you, but I didn't expect that she was really your biological daughter. Tisk, why am I not so lucky to have a daughter with such a mark?" Mrs. Nanan even smiled and joked, "Hey, there are only 2 brats in my family, and they are not considerate to me. Not to mention, I also want such a lovely daughter." Just as she was speaking, Mrs. Nanan Marquis suddenly felt something in her heart. "Princess, you have also seen my youngest son. He is 2 years older than your Chuchu, and his appearance and talent are pretty good." Although Mrs. Nanan Ho did not clarify her words directly, the meaning of her words was quite obvious. Princess Jing was surprised at first, but soon she smiled and said to Princess Dingyuan, "Princess, although that brat in my family is a bit naughty, he is the only son of mine, and the palace will be handed over to him in the future. It just so happens that I also like that girl Chuchu very much. You, my daughter, saved my brat back then and you were considered the savior of our palace. It's better to." Mrs. Nanan Marquis and Princess Jing had a handkerchief relationship when they were in the boudoir, and now their friendship is getting better and better. When she heard that Princess Jing was trying to steal her future daughter-in-law, Mrs. Nanan was immediately dissatisfied and glared at her angrily. "Oh, Princess Jing, I just opened my mouth, and you are about to rob someone. Have you forgotten the first come, first served rule? Go, go, you wait." Princess Jing was smiling all over her face, but she didn't give in. As the saying goes, if a family has a girl, there are hundreds of families looking for it. Who wouldn't be surprised that Chuchu is such a lovely girl? If I just waited stupidly, wouldn't it be just as you wanted? No, I can't wait to take that girl back to our palace and hide her. Princess Dingyuan was happy after hearing what these 2 people said, but she couldn't show it. "You also know that my family Chuchu has just come back a few days ago, and her father and I wanted her to stay with us for a while longer." The princess said this euphemistically, but the meaning behind her words was understood by both Princess Jing and Mrs. Marquis Nanan. They were not upset after being rejected. They both understood that Princess Ding Yuan had just recognized Ling Chu back and would definitely not want her to leave the cabinet so soon. Although Princess Jing and Mrs. Marquis Nanan did not continue the topic just now, they both planned in their minds that after the banquet, they would choose a time to have a good talk with Princess Ding Yuan. They were not the only ones who had this idea. The other ladies who heard their conversation just now were also thinking about it in their minds. The ladies who were talking to Ling Chu next to them heard the conversation of Princess Jing and the others, and their faces showed envy of Ling Chu. Little did he know that Ling Chu had no intention of getting married at all. It's just that this is not the right occasion to talk about it. I can only have a good chat with Princess Ding Yuan after the banquet. The atmosphere was good among the female guests, and everyone on the other side of the male guests was also greeting each other enthusiastically. The Ding Yuan Prince's mansion holds a banquet, which is a good opportunity to get to know the powerful people in Kyoto. Not to mention the guests who received the post, many people who had not received the post also tried their best to participate. Even the prince, second prince, and several princesses came uninvited. The second prince was surrounded by people talking and complimenting him for a while. He felt a little stuffy and found an excuse to go outside for some fresh air. Han Yao set off immediately after receiving the maid's message. Thanks to 11112721142959 and Hongdu UP for their monthly ticket support. Thank you 1402121840211428, The Wind of the Blue Planet, Crystal at Diamond, Scar Red, Tutu is very busy, 202103011064724333066, Colorful Life, This Moment, Laugh With You, asterisk carat. Carat 0 carat asterisk, Official Officer. DC.V, Why We Grow Old, UN1, Hope Dreams Come True, Penyong Fang, This Moment, Laugh With You, Love Alice, 854-729, China Fuzii, Happy Baby, All Living Things, Free as the Wine 459, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Scarred, Figs You. EB, A. Purple Leaf, The Story of Goat Song and Eyes, Chen, Luo, Xiong Ben, Ixixi, Daoyo. EB, etc. supported by book friend recommendation votes. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 373. Chapter 367, Just What You Want. The second prince left the banquet hall and asked the waiting beside him to find the servant in the palace to ask about the location of the garden, intending to take a walk to relieve the sweltering heat. Unexpectedly, it had no effect at all. Instead, it became more and more stuffy as we walked. At first, the second prince thought it was because the clothes he wore today were a bit thick. In addition, he had been surrounded by several officials just now and was chatting with each other. It was so crowded and stuffy. But now he noticed something was wrong. In addition to the sweltering heat, there was also an unbearable longing welling up in my body. The little next to the second prince was shocked when he saw that his face was flushed and there were even beads of sweat on his forehead. At first glance, the second prince looked like he was drunk. But the banquet at Prince Ding Yuan's mansion has not officially started yet. The second prince just drank tea and did not drink alcohol. There is something wrong with him. As the thirst in his body became stronger and stronger, the second prince reached out and tugged on his collar. He already had a guess in his mind, and he was afraid that he was being influenced by others. The second prince is not a young boy who doesn't know anything. He has learned about personnel affairs early. He guessed that the symptoms on his body were caused by the poison. The little who was following him also saw it. Second prince, the people in Ding Yuan Palace are so brave. They dared to drug you, so I went to settle the score with them. The second prince saw the young being impulsive and suppressed his impatience and shouted, "Come back." The little turned around and looked at him in confusion. Second prince. It probably wasn't someone from Prince Dingyuan's palace who did it. Prince Dingyuan and his wife held a grand banquet, which shows how much they attach importance to Ling Chu. If something happens to me, it will definitely ruin this banquet. This is not what they want to see. The second prince's flushed face revealed a gloomy look. On the contrary, the prince. He did not finish the rest of the words. But the little had already come to his senses. The second prince has always been at odds with the prince, and recently there have been a lot of overt and covert fights. If there is anyone who most wants something to happen to the second prince, it must be the prince. Give the second prince a charming drug. If he can't help but mess around in the palace, he will not only ruin the banquet in Dingyuan Prince's palace, make Prince Dingyuan and his wife angry, but also make the second prince look embarrassed. There are many guests today. If this matter spreads, the reputation of the second prince will be completely ruined. The Yashitai will impeach him, and the emperor will be dissatisfied with him. What the little could think of, the second prince also thought of. Go back to the palace immediately. The second prince took the young with him, turned around and left in a hurry. The medicine in his body was getting stronger and stronger. In order to prevent others from discovering that he had been drugged, the second prince did not let the palace servant lead the way, but walked out based on his feeling. After walking a few steps, he saw several maids walking in front of him from a distance, and the second prince almost couldn't help but rush towards them. It seems that he was hit with strong medicine. Forcing himself to look away from the maids, the second prince stopped and leaned on the tree pole to take a few breaths, then turned and hurriedly left through another deserted path. While turning around a rockery, the second prince suddenly saw a figure bumping towards him. Just wanted to turn sideways to avoid it. But my nose suddenly smelled an alluring aroma. A soft ball followed the impact and stuck to his body. The second prince's arms, which he originally wanted to push away, hugged instead. Ah, the second prince, a charming exclamation came from his arms. The second prince looked down and said, "Miss Han." Han Yao's cheeks were crimson, but her eyes were as charming as silk, and her breath was like orchid. "Second prince, don't let me go quickly." The second prince felt that the longing in his body was about to explode. Seeing Han Yao's appearance, he hugged her tightly. He lowered his head and moved towards her red lips. "Yao Yao, you smell so good." Han Yao let out a soft cry, which was buried in the lips of the second prince. The second prince was so carried away with the kiss that he didn't see the glint in Han Yao's eyes. "Uh-huh." Han Yao couldn't make a sound and struggled slightly. It's just that her movements seem to be struggling, but they are very skillful. Han Yao was betrayed by Taoist Ming Zhen, slept with him, and already knew about the affairs between men and women. Every struggle she made was friction, which made the ferocious beast in the second prince want to rush out immediately. The second prince hugged her, breathing heavily. At this time, he had already forgotten his previous concerns. I caught a glimpse of a dark cave in the rockery next to me. Without thinking, he took Han Yao and got in. The little serving the second prince was anxious, but when he saw the second prince's appearance, he already knew that he could not stop him. I could only stand outside the cave uneasily and watch for wind. The second prince took Han Yao into the cave and took a few steps inside. He didn't see anything wrong. Immediately turned around, hugged Han Yao, and began to take off her dress. Although Han Yao whispered no, she did not struggle vigorously. The second prince was about to explode, and he didn't even have time to untie all his brocade robes. Hug Han Yao into a hug. Han Yao struggled skillfully a few times, feeling the ferocity underneath, and wrapped her arms around the second prince's neck. The second prince gasped heavily, pushed Han Yao against the mountain, raised one leg, straightened his waist, and rushed in immediately. In the cave, Han Yao's roar and the roar of the second prince soon sounded. The wife's yard. A maid in blue-colored armor came in with the curtain raised. The wife put down the teacup in her hand and looked at her. How about it, did Han Yao accept the sachet? The maid lowered her eyes respectfully. Go back to madam, Miss Yao has accepted it. That's good. This maid was originally the eldest maid who served the Thai madam. After Han Yao moved here, the Thai madam asked her to serve Han Yao. Is she unwilling? The maid shook her head, no. In fact, the maid felt that the madam was completely overly worried. She sent the sachet over, but she didn't say anything clearly, only showing a hint of meaning. Han Yao has already accepted the sachet. Although she seemed to have no choice but to do so, the maid felt that the madam's move was exactly what she wanted. Otherwise, she would not have accepted the sachet so easily, and even took action as soon as she received the message from the maid from the male guest. The madam didn't know what she was thinking about. She paused for a while and then asked again, how is the situation with the second prince? Don't worry, madam. After the second prince had some snacks, he went to the garden. After receiving the news, Miss Yao rushed over from the alley. The second prince originally sensed something was wrong and wanted to leave the palace. But when he went around to the rockery in the north, he happened to bump into the Yao girl. The maid paused for a moment. Seeing that the madam was still waiting for her to continue, she swallowed quietly. Following that, he said, my servant is watching from a distance. The second prince and Miss Yao have entered the cave. The wife didn't say anything after hearing this. After a moment of silence, he raised his eyes and glanced at the hourglass placed in the corner. He said softly, the hair ceremony will begin soon. Help me to go to the banquet hall. Yes, Mrs. Tai. The maid couldn't figure out Mrs. Tai's thoughts and didn't dare to say anything. She could only step forward and help her out. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 374. Mrs. Tai arrived at the banquet hall at just the right time for Ling Chu's hair-raising ceremony to officially begin. Since she knew that Prince Ding Yuan was going to give Ling Chu a replacement hairpin as a gift, Princess Jing immediately asked Princess Ding Yuan to recommend herself as the guest of honor. But Mrs. Nanan Ho took a step slower, laughed a few times, and had to play it off. After Ling Chu came through time travel, he had been busy making money and accumulating merit, but he didn't receive any handkerchiefs. Princess Ding Yuan then invited her niece to be the praiser. Unexpectedly, before the hairpin ceremony began, the uninvited princess fucking suddenly found Princess Ding Yuan and asked herself to be Ling Chu's sponsor. Princess fucking was the daughter of the empress, so Princess Ding Yuan could not refute her face, so she had to agree. Ling Chu's hairpin ceremony was very grand. In addition to the palace's embroiderers, Princess Ding Yuan also found famous embroiderers from Kyoto to make more than a dozen sets of exquisite and gorgeous dresses for Ling Chu. Handpieces of jewelry were made in 20 or 30 sets. Princess Ding Yuan never stopped smiling when she saw her well-dressed daughter. Wei Feng secretly glanced at Ning Chui from time to time. Although he didn't see any smile on Ning Chui's face. But I muttered secretly in my heart that I am probably in the best mood today. And when the haircut ceremony is halfway through, Ling Chu found that Yin Sha suddenly walked in quietly from outside, came to Ning Chui's side, and whispered a few words. Ning Chui frowned, looking up subconsciously. He happened to meet Ling Chu's gaze in the air. Ning Chui's gaze paused and quickly retracted it. Then he stood up quietly and left with Yin Sha. Ling Chu was a little surprised and didn't know what happened. In full view of everyone, the ceremony of haircutting was in the middle of the process, and Ling Chu could not stop him to ask. Originally, Ling Chu thought something was going on with Jin Yiwei, so Ning Chui had to leave midway. But after seeing a father-in-law quietly whispering a few words to the prince also left immediately. Ling Chu quickly glanced at the guests watching the ceremony. Mrs. Tai came before the ceremony started, but Han Yao never showed up. In addition to Han Yao's absence, the second prince was also nowhere to be seen. Ling Chu remembered that before the haircut ceremony began, she heard the ladies talking quietly. In addition to several princesses, the crown prince and the second prince all came to Dingyuan Palace. But the second prince was not seen at this time. Could it be that the sudden departure of Ning Chui and the prince had something to do with him? Ling Chu thought for a while, and then he was doing two things. On the surface, he was listening to Princess Jing reciting the congratulations, but he secretly turned on the system. Scanned the entire Dingyuan Palace quickly. When he saw a naked man and a woman entangled together in the cave, Ling Chu almost couldn't maintain his dignified expression. How hungry is Han Yao? Last time I was with Taoist Master Ming Zhen. How long has it been? He actually climbed onto the high branch of the second prince's tree again. Ning Chui and the prince left midway, and King Dingyuan naturally noticed it. But his daughter's hairpin ceremony was only halfway through. Although he had doubts, he could only suppress it. To prevent anything from happening, he motioned Han Lin to follow him and take a look. After Han Lin left, the wife also gave the maid next to her a look. The maid felt uneasy, but she did not dare to disobey the wife, so she could only bite the bullet and leave quietly. Princess Dingyuan noticed the actions of these people. But she pretended not to know. There is nothing more important now than the haircut ceremony of her daughter. She knows that the prince and the eldest son will take care of other matters. She just needs to ensure that Ling Chu's haircut ceremony can be carried out smoothly. Han Yao was lying in the cave, watching the second prince galloping above. At first, she refused on the surface, but deliberately teased her secretly. When the second prince dragged her into the cave, and the fire started burning with firewood, Han Yao's anxious heart was quickly relieved. The king of Dingyuan and his wife recognized Ling Chu's and wanted her to leave the palace. Although she was left behind by the dowager, she still felt a little uneasy. She didn't know that one day she would be forced to leave the palace by that Ling Chu. Although Han Yao was betrayed by Ming Zhen, she never gave up her desire to marry the second prince. It's just that the second prince rarely leaves the palace recently, so she hasn't been able to find good opportunities. When he learned that King Dingyuan and his concubine were going to give Ling Chu a replacement haircut gift, Han Yao was jealous but couldn't help but look forward to it. King Dingyuan was favored by the emperor and held military power. Han Yao guessed that the second prince would definitely come to attend the banquet hosted by the palace. She knew this was a rare opportunity. Just when Han Yao was thinking about how to seduce the second prince, unexpectedly, the maid Qiu Wen sent her a sachet. Smelling the scent of the sachet and hearing Qiu Wen's obscure words, Han Yao didn't say anything on her face, but she was secretly happy. Qiu Wen spoke cryptically and did not explain the origin of the sachet. But Han Yao knew that it must be the intention of Mrs. Tai. Originally, Han Yao didn't know why Mrs. Tai defended her and insisted on letting her stay in the palace. But at this moment, Han Yao had a guess. King Dingyuan has always been loyal to the emperor. The prince and the second prince have been secretly wooing him, but they were all rejected by King Dingyuan. Although the second prince is favored, so far, the emperor has no intention of deposing the prince. The prince is likely to be crowned a great treasure. If he becomes the emperor, King Dingyuan will naturally be loyal to the prince. Although concubine was demoted to a good concubine by the emperor, I heard that she had received a lot of favors from the emperor recently. Mrs. Tai doesn't want to put all her eggs in one basket. At this point, Qiu Wen was secretly instructed to send her a sachet. Han Yao knew that if she were the biological daughter of King Dingyuan, concubine Xian and the second prince would definitely be happy to marry her as their princess. But now, they may not still be willing. According to concubine Xian's temperament, she might help the second prince to marry that Ling Chu. The second prince was her favorite, and she would never allow that Ling Chu to be taken advantage of. Han Yao was lost in thought when the second prince suddenly slammed into her love heart. Han Yao's face was twisted in pain. At first, Han Yao was very satisfied with the young figure of the second prince. But the second prince was addicted to the charm drug, and he had no sympathy for her. His actions were rough and he just wanted to vent the power of the drug. Han Yao has been in pain for so long that she can no longer bear the pain. Although her back was padded with a brocade robe, the stones underneath made her back burn. Han Yao wanted to pull away, but the second prince had not finished venting his anger and refused to let her move at all. Just as he was gritting his teeth and enduring it, he suddenly heard something sound outside the cave. Just as Han Yao was about to remind the second prince, out of the corner of his eye, he suddenly saw a black shadow hitting the back of his neck. The second prince groaned and fell limply on top of her. Han Yao's pupils shrank, and she subconsciously stood up and sat up. Followed by a pain in the back of my neck, my vision went dark. Fainted. Outside the cave, the little who was looking after the wind was knocked unconscious with a sap from the back by a guard. The prince followed the two guards into the cave and saw the fainted second prince and Han Yao, but he didn't think much about it. The prince couldn't wait to make the second prince's scandal public, carry them to the banquet hall. Yin Sha stood silently behind Ning Chui, secretly slandering. If these two people were carried out naked, they would definitely ruin Miss Ling's hairpin ceremony. Your Excellency will not agree to this matter. Thanks for the 1103202031197111 votes for support. Thank you pros. BA 201703181914308335, Dusty Memory, Jula N, Happy Baby, UN1, put down that little piece of watermelon, pros. BA, Yan Guxing, 04, China Fuse, hope that dreams come true, all living things, .v, 140212184021428, Why We Grow Old, Colorful Life, Xiong Bin, Tao Yao. EB, Goat Song, and the Story of Eyes, This Moment, Laugh With You, Wind of the Blue Planet, CHLWCH, Southern Acacia, Chen, 2023-082-8227. AC, Forget Me Not, etc. supported by Book Friends recommendation votes. Thanks to Hungziu and the Book Friends who support Hungziu.